So hello there. We are in the process of learning how to use our Stitch Composer program, and that, as you know, is one of the components within the Horizon Link suite for our Janome 15,000 sewing machine. What the Stitch Composer is it's just one of the parts of wonderful tools that help us to get a whole lot out of our sewing machines. And I, for one, just love the Stitch Composer program because I love decorative stitches. And in my mind, there's just never enough decorative stitches available. And the thing that I like the most about Stitch Composer is that it helps me to create just exactly what it is that I have in my mind that I want to see happen with my fabric and my thread. There's a lot of times when this ideas that I have inside of my mind just aren't available on the sewing machine. Believe it or not, with over 400 stitches on our Janome 15,000 machine, there's still even more that a person might want to create. And so Stitch Composer is right there at our fingertips. It's an easy to use program and it's a lot of fun. So once you have opened your Horizon Link suite, all you need to do is just come down to the Stitch Composer icon, double click on it, and it will launch the program. When it does that, this is the screen that's going to open up, and the main part of the screen is going to be this grid that's right here in the middle, and this is where we're going to be doing our design work. All the other tools that are here in the toolbar are things that are going to help us accomplish creating our designs and saving our designs and getting them into our sewing machine so that we can stitch them out and make beautiful things. So I think that where I would like to start today is just taking a look at some of the tools that are in the program and giving us a good feel for what they're there for and how we're going to be using them. So we'll start looking at it from left to right. You will see that I've got a mouse right here, mouse cursor, and I will be pointing at things as I explain them to you. So the first button that we're going to look at is right up here in the far left upper corner. It's a circle with a little stitch design of a flower and a pencil. And this is what is known as our applications button. So there are a few functions underneath here. When I click on it, what I'm going to see is a list of things that are going to I'm going to explain to you right now. In the left-hand column, these are symbols that are, if you have been using Windows, Microsoft Windows for years and you use Word, these are document or items that you're going to see when you create documents. They're nothing new. They're basically Windows icons that help us visualize what they're there for. So they've got a little picture along with the word. And the first one is the piece of paper, and it says new. So what this is for is if whenever we're wanting to start a new design file, let's say, for example, that we've designed something here on this screen and it's just not meeting our taste for what we thought we were going to do. We don't have to delete all of this stuff. All we need to do really is come up to this icon right here and select new, and it will wipe out everything that's on the screen and it will start up a whole new little design so that we can start again. In the event that you want to start working with a design that maybe you have already created, a stitch file you have created, and you want to open it and play with it a little bit more or alter it, then you can come here to this open file. When you select this, it's going to open up a screen that is a navigation screen. You know, if you've taken computer classes with me before, you know I'm always talking about the navigation screen, how you navigate around in your computer to find things, files and folders and things of that nature. So what this has opened up is a program, not a program, excuse me, a folder within the Stitch Composer program that has been stored in the hard drive of this computer. What Janome has done is that they have given several stitches out of the decorative stitch category, the quilting stitch category, and they're here within the Horizon Link Suite program under this PC. I don't want to elaborate too much on this because that's not what we're really here for. But just know that some of these stitches are here for you to just take a look at, and you can play around with them if you want to and alter them as you might want to experiment. So if we have this little preview button over here selected with a check mark in it. Whenever I select one of these stitches, this is the little preview screen, and this will show you what that stitch looks like. So if I'm looking at decorative stitch number 001, it's telling me here that there's some information about it. It says total stitches is 13 stitches within this space. The width on it was automatically set for 3.0 millimeters wide, and the length was at 1.5. And if I wanted to open this stitch up, all I would need to do is hit open. Here it is on my screen. You can see it with the big blue stitches on it. And it would be ready for me to play with and alter it if I decided that I wanted to. We're not going to look at this much more, because what we want to do is just quickly go through these buttons. So I'm back to Applications button. The next one down is Save. So once we have created a stitch file, we can hit this button right here for Save. And again, what has happened to it is it will save it in the exact same place where we just opened it from. That's not usually the way that I like to save things. So my preferred method when I save is to use Save As, because when I select Save As, what will happen is a navigation window is going to open up, and it's going to give me the opportunity to go wherever it is in my computer that I am saving my own personal designs. And it's not necessarily going to be in this particular storage place. So that's why I like Save As, because then I can navigate over to my documents, to my machine, which I have saved here as my Janome 15K. I can open up that folder, and here I've got some stitches. Or this is a folder that has been created where there are some stitches that have been saved within it. If I want, I could, at this point in time, I could make a new folder. I have not used this program on this computer for this 15,000 machine very much, and so I have not bothered to create my stitch folder here within my Janome 15,000 folder that I made in Documents. So what I did is I just selected New Folder. I'm going to call my new folder Created Stitches. So I'm just typing this in. Once I've got the name typed in like I want it, I'm just going to hit the enter button on my computer, and I now have created a folder. I double click on it to open it up, and I'm just going to save this stitch. I'm going to call it 1. That makes virtually no sense to basically anybody. I'm just showing you right now how it is that I would save a stitch with my own name and in the place where I want to save it. So then I would hit save if I wanted to save it, which I'm not going to do because I didn't create this stitch, and it's not really something that I need to have within my folder. But if I decided that it was something I'd worked really hard on, which we're going to do in a little while, then I would go ahead and I would hit the save button, and that stitch would be saved within that folder, and I will be able to come back and find it when I want it. Okay, so that's why I prefer Save As over Save. But this will be your choice how it is that you want to work in the computer in this program, and you can choose whichever one of those functions you think is going to work best for you. The next button down is a print button, and if there is ever a time when you thought you might want to print out a little picture of what this stitch looks like, this would send that design to your personal printer so that you could print it out if you wanted to. The last button that we see here in our Applications button is the version. If I were to select that, this little screen is going to pop up, and it's going to tell me what version of the program I'm currently running that's installed on my computer. This is telling me that this is Stitch Composer version 1.1, which was released in 2017 by Janome, and no new updates have been done since that time. But keep an eye out at the Janome Global website, and watch out for bulletins that Janome also releases, because when they do come out with updates, they're going to let their customers know so that you can go and you can download the updates and install them on your computer to get the latest versions of the program. All right, so that is basically what's under this Applications button. Right here on the right side of the screen when I open this up is it's just going to show me the latest stitches in the STX files that I have looked at as I have used my program. And what it's done is it's showing me where those are at. This is the little pathway. They're showing me that they are in the C users drive, and those were some of the stitch patterns that I either looked at or that maybe I created on my own. All right, so we could just hit that to exit. Oh, I really didn't want to exit the whole program. I thought I was just exiting out of the applications button. I'm going to minimize this screen. So we're back again. The next thing we're going to look at quickly is this little button, or this bar here, which is sometimes called the quick access toolbar. I like to call it a ribbon. The reason why I call it a ribbon is because if you were to click on this little downward arrow, which helps us to customize this quick access toolbar, you're going to discover that they will call these types of bars ribbon bars. And some software designer a long time ago called them that, and I don't know why, other than it looks like a piece of stretched ribbon across your screen, I suppose. But this quick access toolbar can be customized to suit whatever little icons you feel like you might use frequently and that you would want to have access to easily. Right now what I've got on mine is a new button, same new button that's over here in the applications circle. Okay, nothing different about it. This is an open an existing file icon. The next one over is I have my save as, because as I said before, I like to use save as when I am saving my stitch files and I'm saving them onto the hard drive of my computer. The next one over is a zoom in button. There's a lot of times when you're working here on this screen that you might want to come and hit this zoom in, so that the screen will enlarge and give you a better view of stitch points that you might be placing on the grid marks here. So the next one over is a play button, and that will allow me to watch the stitch pattern being stitched out and what it's going to look like as it's stitching. That simulation button will show in this little preview area of your screen. And all of this can be customized and changed around a little bit. We'll look at that in a while. But that's what the play button is for. If I hit the downward button here, this is going to allow me to customize this quick access toolbar. And I can add or subtract any of these functions as I would like to, just to customize it to my own taste. How do you do that? You just hit this more commands right here. A screen pops open, and in this left-hand side are the functions that you can add to the quick access toolbar. All you do is select it. And I think I'm going to select, I don't really want to even choose one. But let's just say, for example, I wanted to hit the add in, let's just say printer settings. I would highlight it, I would hit it add, and here it is on my toolbar. And the next time that after I say OK, that printer settings is showing up now on my quick access toolbar. So along the same lines of continuing to look at some of the features of the Stitch Composer program and some of the helpful tools here, over in the upper right hand corner we've got our minimize button. If I hit this button, minimize it, my screen is now closed. The program is still running. If you look down here where I'm pointing at, I can just select it and the screen pops open again. So that just, the little minus sign means to minimize. Same thing you've been doing in Windows-based programs for quite a while, I'm sure. The next one is maximize, and that just means that when you select this, it's going to fill up your entire computer screen so that you've got a nice big field to look at and to work on your designs in. And then of course you've got the X to close out the screen, which also will close the program. See this little blue question mark? It's a really handy little tool. When you select the question mark, it's going to open up the manual for the Stitch Composer program. And this is just a really great way to pass some time. Someday you might just want to take a look at all of this and read all the way through it. If you are taking my Stitch Composer class, you will know and remember that I actually copied this entire manual and I included it in the folder for the class. And that is basically what this upper part of this toolbar is all about. Windows functions, how to minimize, maximize, close down, take a look at your manuals. And in addition to the manuals, there's also about 4 really great short tutorials that Janome has put out on how to use the Stitch Composer program that will really help you learn this quite well. All right, so the next thing that we've got is we've got some tabs, and within these tabs we're going to have a particular set of buttons. So we've got a Home tab. Within our Home tab we have got function buttons to move and point and move the stitches as we have created them. Highlight them if you might want to look at them highlighted. The lock stitch is a real important button. This is the one that you're going to hit whenever you have completed your stitch pattern, and you will select your lock stitch. That will add in the finishing touches to your stitch so that it will actually be ready to sew. These little buttons, start point, loop point, and end point. The lock stitch button does all of this automatically for you. But if for some reason you decided that you wanted to add your own start point, loop point, and end point, you could certainly do that yourself to customize your stitch even further. What the start point is that's going to be the start point. That's exactly where your stitch is going to be started at. And as you know, it will probably, you always will remember that it's always going to start off with a few little tie-in stitches. That's a lock. That will be your starting point. The loop point, don't want to get too complicated about that right now, but let's say, for example, that you have created a design that is, let's say about like that. And let's say within this that you wanted stitch number 5 that I just popped in here to be the loop point. You could select that as the loop point and or add that in and specify that that's where you want your design to start looping at. Basically that means repeating. And then of course the end point is going to be where the design ends and where it's going to create some lock stitches so that it will end when you hit your lock stitch button on your sewing machine as you're stitching this out. I'm going to hit a new so that goes away. Save changes to my Stitch Composer? No, it was just a little piece of junk. Once you have start designing your pattern on your grid here, you're going to have the undo and the redo buttons become available to use. Right now they kind of are grayed out because I don't have a pattern on here. So whenever you have placed a stitch point that you don't like, you have 2 ways that you can get rid of it. One of them is to use this undo button, and the other way is to just use your backspace button that is on your keyboard. Redo will do exactly that. If you thought that you deleted something that you changed your mind and didn't want to delete, just hit the redo and it will come right back in there. Insert is where you will be able to add additional stitches within the pattern that you have created. We will do some lessons on that insert button in a future class. Cut, that means delete, and it works a little bit differently than you would use a delete button on your computer, but we'll also be using the cut button. We will use a copy button later on and the paste function. Horizontal mirror and vertical mirror, that's exactly like what they say. Let's say, for example, that you have created a stitch pattern and you would want, watch my cursor, want it to go this way instead. You can select stitch points and you can create horizontal and vertical mirror patterns using those buttons there. These are extra settings in this little tab right here for how far you want your stitch patterns to space out, and some other information in here that's quite useful once you've actually designed some stitches. And then this is your data manager. Once you have created a design, you will be able to write this design to your USB stick to send it to your sewing machine. And the file manager will also help you to open up your USB stick and either organize files into different folders, delete stitch patterns that you decide that you don't like and aren't going to use, and things like that. That's what File Manager is all about. If I come back over here and I hit the View tab, the View tab is going to give me magnifying glasses to zoom in, zoom out, or even create a custom size for the screen that's right here that I'm going to be using as my design field. Next, if these stitch number and grid lines are checkmarked, what will happen with the stitch number is that as you create stitches, Notice here in my stitch point list that now those stitches have appeared as stitch number 1, 2, and 3. It's telling me some information about how wide they are, how long they are, and in addition to that, if I added any extra attributes to them, such as tension or something, it would appear in this list. If I don't have that selected, the stitch numbers not only will show up here in the stitch point, but they will also have the numbers right around the stitch point itself. Did you notice that? Stitches that have been completed have a blue stitch point. If it's the last one that I did, it's got a red stitch point on it. But if I don't want to see the numbers, all I need to do is just deselect stitch number, and there's no numbers. They're just little dots where the stitches have been created. And then we've got the grid lines. So if I didn't want to see all these grid lines here, I could unselect that, and I've got a big white screen that maybe that would work better for you. So lots of different ways to customize the look of the screen here. Okay. What this little pane is right here is it's called the window layout. And right now, my window layout is set so that it is at the left and the bottom. So what's at the left? My stitch point list. What's at the bottom is my preview screen. So this is where the stitch pattern will stitch out once there's enough stitches here to actually look at it as a pattern. If I wanted to have my screen look different, I could select left and right. I also like this orientation quite a bit. Stitch point list is still on the left and my preview is on the right. What I like about this is that when it stitches out, it's going to stitch out from top to bottom. And that's actually the direction that your sewing machine sews in. And so that might be the orientation that you might also prefer to have. The window layout for right and bottom just switches it over for your stitch point list to be on the right side of your screen. Your preview window for the stitch out is on the bottom, and your grid is right here on the far left and center. I think I'm going to come back to left and bottom for today. Backdrop image. This is a really great way for you to copy designs. In class number 1 that we had together, I talked with you a little bit about that, about the need to use your little snip tool. I'm pointing at it down here on my toolbar of my computer screen. And that's a good way to capture little images of stitches that maybe you see somewhere on a, let's just say somebody designed a quilt or some other sort of a project and they used a decorative stitch that you found fascinating and you decided you wanted to copy it. You could use the snip tool on your computer and you could take a little picture of it. It's saved as a JPEG, and a JPEG image is what you can open up using this backdrop image tool. Once you've got a backdrop image here on the screen, you have to lock it so that it doesn't wiggle around on the screen. And once it's there, you can either have it show or not show, or if you want it to just be barely apparent to you, you can hit this transparent button, or else it can stay a little bit dark or as dark as the clip actually looks. And if you don't want that image on there anymore, all you need to do is just delete it. Okay, we are going to be working with these functions in a future class, so I'm not going to demonstrate them anymore at this point. And then the last tab we have here is the simulation tab. When this is turned on and when we have designed a stitch, we can have it play. And as you can see here, watch that, we'll do it again. It will play out right here on the bottom of the screen so that you can see how that stitch is stitching out. Now, you will notice that it only stitched out one time and then it stopped. And that's not normally how a sewing machine would work. If I wanted it to continue to loop and fill up the whole row here of how that stitch actually looks, I would have to come back here to the home screen. I would have to hit the lock stitch button, which is telling me that the pattern has been completed. And now you will notice when you look at this little preview screen that it is stitching out continually, and I get a really good feel for what my stitch looks like. Okay, so that's what simulation is all about. You can select how fast you want that stitch to stitch out. Woo, look at it go fast. Or you can slow it down to go very, very slowly. Are you watching that down on the bottom of the screen? Okay, I'm just going to put it back at about the average. If I wanted to zoom in on my screen, I could do that with my zoom in buttons and my zoom out buttons. I can change the thread color of what this stitch out down here looks like by selecting this. And right now you can see that my current color is this bright orchid color. If I decided that I wanted to change it, all I would need to do is select one of the color chips here in the color selection, and I would say OK, and it would change my color. Okay, so that is a little bit more about that simulation button. My stitch is continuing to sew. Looks really cute. I'm going to go back home right now, and I'm going to say I want a new screen. It's asking me, do I want to save the stitches that I just created? And I'm going to say, no, thank you. Not right now. Thanks for watching this video. I will come back with a little bit more for part number 2. And in that one, we are actually going to design a little stitch, and we're going to save it. And we're going to send it to our sewing machine and stitch it out and see how well we did. But for right now, I would like for you to go back to your computer, open up your Stitch Composer program, and just look at all of those buttons that I just showed you on your own program. And I'll be back soon to show you more about this great little program. Thanks for watching.